This is the Staying Power Podcast, a show that explores the challenges business owners face as they grow. I'm Brandon Hall.
And I'm Thomas Castelli.
And together we ask the tough questions to show you that running a business is not for the faint of heart. But if you have staying power, you'll overcome your challenges and achieve lasting success.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Staying Power Podcast. We're joined here today with David Wood, a former consulting actuary to Fortune 100 companies, including Sony Music, Chanel, and Exxon. David left his cushy Park Avenue job 20 years ago to build the world's largest consulting business, where he became number one on Google for life coaching, serving an audience of over 150,000 coaches and coaching thousands of hours across 12 countries. In today's episode, we discuss Dave's journey, the struggles he faced along the way, how you're addicted to emails and other social media, what you can do about it, and much more.
Dave, thanks for taking time to come on the show today. Would you be able to give our listeners a little information on your background?
My background? Well, I was born as a consulting actuary, came out of the womb, left-brained, cerebral, and good at maths. And I went and studied actuarial science, which is a lot of complex numbers and statistics and probability for insurance companies, and got a job in New York working on Park Avenue, consulting to Sony Music and Chanel and Procter & Gamble. And I thought I had it made at the age of 24. And then I did a personal development program by accident. Someone suggested I should go and do it. And even though they all wore name tags and they smiled way too much, I got in saying, I'll just do one course and that's it. I'm not going to be a self-help junkie. Or famous last words. They cracked my cynicism. They opened my heart. And so while the first 25 years of my life were spent around business and systems and numbers, the last 25 years have been devoted to a lot of discovering what is emotional intimacy, what is vulnerability, what is influence, what is leadership. And so now I'm a bit of a rare bird. I don't do just business coaching. I don't do just life coaching. I deal with the whole person who's running a business.
That's interesting. Because, I was thinking about it not too long ago that, I wish I had someone to talk to about life and business who understood both sides of the coin. So it should be an interesting podcast. Starting off with the coaching industry, what have been your most effective tools so far as a coach?
One of my most effective tools, there are two categories of information that can be helpful. One category is the stuff you've never heard of before. It's totally new. It's sexy. It's shiny. Oh, great. I'm going to try this new strategy. The other category is stuff you may already know, but you're just not implementing. Like, how many of us know how to be healthy? And how many of us actually implement everything we know to be healthy? So the first thing that I'll mention is not rocket science, but I think it's critical, and that's knowing where you're heading. So what I do when people come to me and they're interested in working with me as a coach, I say, what do you want? What are we looking at? And a good time frame is 12 months. Let's just get really clear about what would have us do the happy dance. Now, because we're going into the new year soon, at the time of recording this, I'll give an extra question, which I think is a wonderful way to start this process. How do you want to feel? What do you want to have? And not even what do you want to be doing, but how do you want to feel 12 months from now? Then we work backwards. All right. What kind of activities? What do you want to have in your life that will have you feel that? Then we can create some really concrete goals. So I'd say that's the first tool, but then it's too easy to have goals that go up on your fridge and you just don't even look at them. You never see them again until 5 years later you find that piece of paper. And you're like, oh, I did some of that. So what we need to do is maintain a connection between what we do today and those goals that are way in the future, say 12 months. So I suggest that we layer those goals. Get your 12-month version, put it somewhere where you'll keep inspired. And then what's the 8-week version look like? We'll just layer it, right? 8 weeks from now, I've got to have this to be fully on track. Then we've got to come back even further because 8 weeks still can be lost. What are our 7-day targets? What am I going to do in the next 7 days? And then the last layer is, what will I do tomorrow if I only did 2 things? If that was all I was allowed to do, then what would be the 2 things that would move the needle in my business and life. If you layer your goals like that, I think it's a game changer.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I resonate with setting long-term goals and then kind of stepping it back. You actually get this in the audit world too. And I don't know if you work with any CPAs, but auditors, they'll set the deadline and then they'll say -1, -2, -3, -4, and that's supposed to represent weeks. So basically, by the time we get to these weeks, these milestones related to this one audit have to be met. And David, I guess my question for you is, when you're doing this personally, when it's not project-based, I have found it difficult to do. And I guess where I find it difficult is I can set my 12-year target. I can set my quarterly targets. I struggle with the weekly and then I struggle with the daily because things change on an ongoing basis, right? You got fires to put out. You see the shiny object, which we know we're going to talk about here in a minute. How do you stay on track daily? And is this process something where you have to reset it on a daily basis? And is that part of the beauty of it? Does that make sense?
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. So you've gone straight to the heart of what's next. So once we've got our layered goals and going to January, in the new year, this is a great time to do it. But once you got your layered goals, question is, how do I actually make that happen and keep the system in place? Because you don't want to have to do that revisioning every day. It's too much. So what we do is that 7-day process, the 7-day goals, that has to be done once a week. So again, super simple, but a game changer. Make sure you have a date with yourself once a week for 20 minutes. I call it a CEO date. For me, it's Friday morning. It's got to be Friday morning because my deadline to have my weekly action plan is 1:00 Mountain Time. And I actually have to pay a penalty if I don't have it done in time. And we'll get to that in a moment. So I did it this morning. I did my weekly action plan, done. And that's a time when you look back at what you did and you celebrate, because it's too easy to keep looking at the next mountain to climb. You can get fatigued by just constantly looking at what's missing and where you want to go. We need to turn around and enjoy the view. So 20 minutes, say 4:00 on a Friday, you look back, all right, I did that, I did that, I did that, and I did that. I'm a legend. And then look forward at your 8-week goals. Now you got to do it once a week. All right, this is what I want to get handled. What am I going to bite off in the next 7 days? And equally important, what am I going to choose to not care about for 7 days? Look, the entrepreneur, we get so overwhelmed by all the possibilities and options and strategies, and I try and hold it all in my head. For 7 days, I will care about this. Now, I've got, if anyone's watching the video, if not, I'll describe it. This is my Scrum board up ahead of me. The second column is what I've chosen to care about over the next 7 days. I've only got 5 Post-it notes. Now, if I get them done ahead of time, which I will because I'm a legend, I'll grab some other stuff from the hopper and I'll move it over. So once a week, CEO date with yourself. Now, the next layer, if you want bonus points, when you finish at the end of each day, and you need to set a reminder, if I don't, I'll forget, pick the 2 needle movers for tomorrow. If I only got to do 2 things, what would I do? And you can go to your Scrum board or wherever it is and say, these are the 2 things, boom, tomorrow. Now, I think we're almost there now. We've covered our layering the goals. Then we've covered how do you stay on track weekly with it. Well, simple date with yourself. The next question that comes up is, yeah, but it's Tuesday morning. I chose what I'm going to do. I've sat down to do it and everything just went to hell. How do I do the 2 things that mattered? Well, I'll outline a few mistakes that a lot of people make. And I found this by making them all myself. And my clients have made them. Firstly, don't check email or voicemail before you do the 2 things that you've said matter most. If I sit down and I say, all right, I am going to edit 2 videos. That's the most important thing today. And I sit down and then I open my email. I'm gone, lost. All of this stuff is now filling up my head. Even if I was able to ignore the 30 emails, I've still just lowered my IQ for the next 15 minutes at least. So I recommend do your morning routine, get started on the 2 things that matter, and then go and check your email, your messages, hug your family, do everything after you've done those things?
So Tom and I advise clients on tax issues, accounting issues, that type of thing. We get a ton of email requests bombarded daily, like 10s, 20s, 30s, hundreds sometimes a week. It's crazy. How do you fight the urge to check your email? Because for me, it's almost like an addiction, like a weird habitual addiction where I've got to go get a dope hit every 5 minutes to just see what the notification. I mean, I'm not even answering my email. I have an executive assistant, thank goodness, who does a great job of like organizing my inbox. But even then, I still find myself like checking, just looking. How do you fight the urge?
Yeah,
How do you, if you don't mind, I want Tom to jump in too, because I know that we've talked about this. And
yeah. I mean, like one of the things is too, like I've tried waking up early to do it, but then I still feel the need to check my email as soon as I wake up. Like today, I checked my email before I even got out of bed. And I needed to. I felt the need. And then there's something that was worse. When I don't check it and everything's calm and peaceful, I feel like there's something wrong. Like unless I'm feeling like the constant like, whoo, like like whiplash of like pain, like I feel like there's not something right. Like I need the pain to be there to feel okay. If that makes any sense.
Wow. Yeah. So you guys,
can I add one more thing, David? Because we really need your advice here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So to elaborate on Tom, I get like this. It can almost be physical. Like your pulse races a little bit. You've got this like kind of almost like a burning sort of sensation in your stomach or chest. Maybe not burning. It's hard to describe, but like I'll be like going, I have to check my email. How do you avoid that?
So addiction's the right word. And we're always looking to change our state. And when we check email or we check a text message or whatever, we do get a little dopamine hit. And when we try and multitask, I believe that what we're doing is we're generating more adrenaline because we're trying to handle the emails, and then we take this phone call, and then we do that, and the kid knocks at the door, and then, they say, oh, I forgot to buy that thing on Amazon. Let me just get that done. Here's the question. Do you want entertainment or do you want results? That's what you need to decide. It's entertaining to just flow and check email and respond, and look, I'm a legend. Look, I'm getting all this stuff done. I may not be moving the needle in my business. I may not be doubling my revenue. I may not be leveraging so I can double my time off, but I'm feeling really productive, right? So you guys are ahead of the game because you've spotted it. You know it. A lot of listeners may not realize that they're running on adrenaline and they're deliberately or subconsciously creating drama and stress. Yesterday, I was feeling pretty worn out at about 3:00 in the afternoon. And I made the mistake of opening my email. That was a terrible time to do it. I was burned out. And I'm like, oh, I'll just check through email, whatever. And then I found out someone had made a big mistake. Now I'm feeling lousy. I sent a message that wasn't that kind to someone. It was just a terrible time. So I have the addiction too. I might go through to 5:00 when 3:00 was the time to stop, at least for a meditation. So one way that I combat it is because I've realized through trial and error that email will hijack my agenda. I cannot open the email and just be very selective. I have to go through and complete it. So one game you could play is I will do this thing first, and you can set a container for it. That's a way you do a deal with your mind. I will do this sprint. I've got 1 hour. I'll do 2 25-minute sprints, 5-minute break in the middle. I set my timer. Hey, Siri, set timer, 25 minutes. And then I've got the task in front of me. I actually move it on my board over to now. And only one thing is allowed in that column. And while that thing is on my board in the now column, I'm not allowed to touch anything else. But it's only 25 minutes. So I'm okay with it, right? There's a container. I've done a deal with myself. Do 25-minute sprint. I'll have a 5-minute break. I'll do another 25-minute sprint, knock off this thing that's going to help me in my business. And as a reward, I get to check email.
But you don't check email during that 5-minute break.
I wouldn't do it. I think it's going to derail it's going to hijack your agenda.
Yeah. So that's really good.
Brandon, you've got a really powerful strategy. You've got an executive assistant. So if you have that and your assistant's willing to check your email, say 2 to 3 times a day, I love that system because you can say to your assistant, if something's urgent, ping me on this channel. Now, I don't have any channel open. I turn my phone on Do Not Disturb, and it's on airplane mode, and my computer's on Do Not Disturb because I don't want anyone pinging me while I'm focused. But you might have one channel that's on, like a WhatsApp channel or something, and your assistant knows if something's urgent, that's how they'll get your attention. That might even help you relax while you're in your sprints. You know, if something was important, someone would tell you.
I'm going to have to try that. That sounds great. Because I was watching The Social Dilemma on Netflix recently, and it was hilarious because I was watching it and I was like, I don't have any of these problems, because they were talking about Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, which I don't really participate in, minus just doing business stuff, connecting with people for a business reason. But other than that, I don't spend any time on the platforms. LinkedIn, even same thing. But then they moved on to Gmail. And they said Gmail is designed to keep you coming back, to keep you coming back to the platform, to get the dope hit. They went through like, I can't remember if this was Gmail or Google specifically, but some 60,000 iterations of color to figure out which color would make you come back. And I was like, oh my God, I'm addicted to my email. These guys got me. They got me in their snares. They got me in their trap. I've got to get out.
Yeah, I got to admit that even that new M that Gmail has, that little app box, is even more attractive on my phone. I got to admit.
Yeah.
So that aha moment that you had, you went from not even realizing you had an addiction to realizing it. That's the first big step. I've done a lot of work with this. I'm a big fan of Byron Katie, who's a teacher. And I went and did a month with her. And she made us all go to an AA meeting once a day for 30 days. We're like, why? He said, it just goes hand in hand with the work we're doing here. We're like, all right, Katie. I tell you what, after 6 meetings of going and saying, hey, I'm David, I'm just here to listen, I started to identify as an addict. And all 10 of the other people in the course started to identify as an addict because we started to become aware of the lack of control that we had in a number of areas of our life. Sugar, food, relationships, sex, television, caffeine, and thinking. We are addicted to thinking. We just don't realize it because everyone else has the same affliction. So I now happily identify as an addict. I'm like, yeah, I'm addicted to a lot of stuff. Now, addiction in itself, I have learned over the years, is not a bad thing. We are addicted to water. Being addicted to something isn't a bad thing. You got to look at what's the cost. So look, I'm addicted to gaming. I love games. That's fine. I'm willing to do it to a certain point. If I start doing 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day of it, that's a problem for me. And now I want to handle it. So it's not a problem being addicted to email. Just be aware of it and give yourself the fix in limited amounts and maybe use that. Oh, well, I like checking email. I can do that as a reward as soon as I've done this, this, and this.
So you said to use the parameter. What did you call it? The box method? Parameter method? Where you say 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 25 minutes. You're making a deal with yourself. What was that?
Oh, yeah. So you said a sprint.
A sprint. Okay.
A sprint. And that 25 minutes actually comes from something called the Pomodoro method. If you're interested, you can go and Google that. It's pretty cool. But the premise is basically give yourself a short container and a clear goal. And it's so much fun. You know, you said like 25-minute sprint and I've got this target. Now, because I really want to hit the target, I'm focused. And then you start to notice something. Oh, how'd I get onto Facebook? Oh, I've only got 10 minutes left. All right, come back. You build your awareness by setting a container and setting a goal. And I'll tell you how to ramp it up even more. Get somebody to co-work with you. So yesterday I said to a friend, do you want to co-work? She's like, yeah. All right, let's check in at 10 a.m. 10 a.m., we get together and we say, what are you going to do? We got 5 minutes to work this out. Tell me your goals. Here are my goals. We're going to do a 2-hour sprint and we'll check in 2 hours. Now, once that's done, I am on fire because I know at 2 hours I get to either show off everything I did and feel great, or I'll have to say I did 4 other things that weren't even on my list. So it keeps ramping up the accountability and increasing your awareness of how much like our mind is like a monkey on crack. It's incredible. Then you can deal with it once you're aware of it.
I love that. That's so, Tom and I are going to try that. I want to keep going down this email thing though, because I think that I get stressed about emails, and I'm thinking about 2 25-minute sprints, and I'm kind of getting stressed about thinking about that, because I know that on the back end of that, I've got emails that have accumulated and piled up. I also know that it's not effective to just sit there and answer your emails throughout the day, and that you should answer emails in sprints as well. And I know this for a fact. Well, I know this because I've read about this. I've done reading on this email addiction thing that I have to try to understand it. But I also know this about myself because there are 10 emails in my inbox right now that have just been hanging out there for 4 days. Not because I don't want to answer them. It's just because I clicked them, I read them, and then I said, no, I'm not going to do this right now. And now just hovering my mouse over it to click on it again takes significant effort, significant energy to do just to click on it now, because I know that I'm going to have to answer it at some point. So I know that answering even emails in sprints is more effective. And I guess, you've given us the sprint idea to block emails off, block social media, block all your channels. Are there other practical steps to try to reason with yourself to say, hey, the emails are going to be there. They're going to be there, but you also know that you're going to be able to get them done. You just don't need to get them done right this second. We're going to make some time for that later. Some people talk about calendar blocking. Do you have other practical tips for dealing with the need to feel like you need to go check your emails?
Well, I think what I'm going to do is give you a bigger reason why that we'd want to block that off. I'm a big fan of the West Wing TV show. I'm watching it for the 5th time right now. Every episode, 5 times, 7 seasons. And Leo McGarry, the chief of staff, tries to keep a lot of stuff off the president's desk. Why? Because the president would go insane, right? There's some issue about diplomats having parking tickets and not paying their parking tickets. Leo wants to keep it off the president's desk because the president will go apeshit when he finds out. And now it's going to be his focus for the next hour instead of the more important stuff. We need to do that for ourselves. It's almost like we've got to parent ourselves or be chief of staff for our own brain. And I make this mistake. As I said, 3:00 in the afternoon, I go and open up email. And now an hour and a half, I'm dealing with stuff when I don't have the capacity and I shouldn't have been doing it. So you need a chief of staff, which can be you. So that's the biggest reason not to be opening it every 20 minutes. Is because it's almost like if I try and play this computer game for 20 minutes, I can't do it. I need at least a good hour and a half to do that properly. So I would say just be kinder to yourself and know that you are a limited resource. And if you keep checking email and keep checking text, you are now responding to the world's agenda. You are not leading yourself.
I can't tell you how incredibly important this conversation is to me. David, while you were talking, I literally opened my email to check it. And I was like, immediately like, oh my God, what am I doing? We're talking about it right now. Stop.
Yeah.
I'll say with my limited experience, I do agree with everything you said, Dave. Like, we are addicted to a lot of things, and sugar is definitely one of them. People I don't think you even realize. And unfortunately, I think it's cold turkey, and just being able to have, to your point, Dave, to be able to say, you know what, this thing that I have to do is more important than this addiction. So, me losing weight is more important than me eating this cookies and cream ice cream bar, right? You really want the cookies and cream ice cream bar, but you value more of the losing weight aspect.
Yeah. Now that's if that works for you, that's great. It doesn't usually work for me. It's really hard for me to just switch off addictions, but you can manage it. So you do a deal with yourself. Hey, I do 25 minutes. My guess is you could go 25 minutes without checking a damn email. And if not, then, then that's a bigger issue. If you can't go 25 minutes without it. I wonder if your brain thinks that something bad might happen. Is that possible, that you think something bad might happen if you go an hour and you miss an email? Is that possible?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, it's that the client's going to then is going to follow up with you, and you're not going to respond to that one because you're doing something else, and then they're going to go to somebody else, and now it's a whole entire triage of issues because I didn't answer my email right then when the person answered
Yep.
me.
I think that's valid.
And for me, we run a virtual CPA firm, so for me, it's almost like a pulse on everything that's going on, like the conversations and just what's happening. And I know realistically that the world's not going to blow up in 25 minutes, an hour, even in a day. I'll be fine. But I still can't. It's so hard to fight. So hard to fight.
Yeah. Well, look, when I went to this Byron Katie course, there's a 9-day course she does, and people have to give up their cell phones and their computers for 9 days. And you should see what happens. People really freak out because they're addicted to it and they think that the world revolves around them. So I don't have the same issue for you as email, but I do have a bit of a concern if I leave it for more than a day. I did have recently a client sent something and they were upset about something, and I didn't get back for 3 days because I didn't see it for 3 days. Normally there'd be a 1-day response. This was a 3-day response. And so what I did is I told all of my clients, hey, if you need to get me urgently, text is the way to do it. That's the channel that I monitor. Don't send anything by text that's not time sensitive, because then I got to deal with it. So the stuff that's not time sensitive, use email. I choose when I'm going to go and I'm going to play with that. If it's important, you've got my phone. That's how to get hold of me. That allows me to relax around the email. So again, for you, Brandon, I wonder if having your assistant, maybe they agree to check email 5 times a day, if that would have you feel more comfortable. And they send you a text message if something can't wait, or if it's just a heads up or whatever, so that you can. I want to honor that piece of you that doesn't want to miss a really big opportunity, and so that you can relax while you're working, knowing that someone will come get you. It's really important.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm sitting here just imagining my life being quiet, just without all the social aspects of it, like not social, but just the emails, just pinging you on an ongoing basis, Slack pinging you on an ongoing basis, the ability to close that down and just focus on delivering whatever task is at hand or executing that. Oh, it sounds glorious. And I should say my assistant's amazing. She puts up a lot of crap from me. I'm always a changing barometer. I'm like, I need to do this. Yeah.
Well, I'm also thinking, I haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking of moving a bunch of the icons. When you open up your main screen, you see your apps. And so here are my apps, and you see a whole bunch of notifications, right? I can see that there's one on Marco Polo, there's 22 on WhatsApp, there's 13 on Facebook. That pulls at me because it's like, I'm supposed to handle that. I'm thinking of moving a bunch of those onto the second screen so that when I want to engage with the world, I will go and look at that screen and I'll go and dive into it. But I don't want it pulling at me. And the other thing I want to say to what you said, Brandon, is you may find some withdrawals initially. If you start to slow down and you're checking in less, you may have some withdrawals. I'm having some withdrawals now because I uninstalled a computer game from my computer. I was spending a lot of time. That's where I went. And it's difficult initially. I got to find other things to fill that time with and down-regulate my system. And until my system is down-regulated, I still want to get that stimulation.
Dave, just to add on to what you said before, I think it's a valid point. What I did is I turn off my notifications on my like work email and stuff on my phone, so I don't get notifications from it. I don't even see the pings. I go into it and see it. I can go into it and see what's going on. I wouldn't be able to turn my life off ever, because they were just constant. And I learned, and I used to do that. I used to have everything come direct to my phone, and I realized it's just super unhealthy. I couldn't live. I was going nuts. So I said, you know what? I'm going to turn off my notifications. And when I'm ready, when I'm ready to go look into notifications, I go look. I also shut my door in here, and I don't go into the office unless I'm ready to go into the office, because similar situation.
Yeah. So we're talking about taking charge of your life. Basically, this is taking charge of your own agenda instead of reacting and responding to everybody else's.
So David, kind of switching gears a little bit, or maybe not, we've heard you say double your revenue by focusing on less. And I think that kind of is in line with the shiny object syndrome and your thoughts on that. But how can you possibly double your revenue by focusing on less? What does that mean?
Well, how can you double your revenue by focusing on more? I mean, look at your life already of what's going on. If you try and just do more and do more emails and open more apps and add 2 more addictions to your life, is that going to give you more money? No, it's going to have you feel busier. So, yeah, we've been talking about this the whole time. What we need to do is start with, where do I want to go? Because if I don't know, then I'm definitely going to respond to everyone else's agenda. But if I start getting interested, oh, wait a minute, I want this. I want this many clients. I want this much revenue. I want this much time off. I want to be an expert in salsa dancing. I want this, this, and this. You set that and you actually care about it. Now you've got a reason to get more productive. So that's where we start. And business owners in particular have a really rough beat because we don't just have a job. We have 10 or 20 jobs. And so we need, even more so, we need to be able to focus, to be productive. Yesterday, I don't know, I probably did 4 or 5 things that weren't needed to move my business goals forward. A lot of them were entertainment based. And then I probably did 3 things that were important, maybe. We want to change that ratio. So by setting your targets and then by waking up and saying, this matters to the business, to my life, to my wife and husband, whoever, this matters. And for 25 minutes, I will focus. It's actually a meditation. I will focus. I even recommend, here's another tip, when you sit down to do it and you're like, oh, I need to check email. Oh, I didn't order this on Amazon. Oh, I forgot to tell my husband or wife this. I recommend often that my clients have a later list. There's a piece of paper that says later at the top. And when you get a thought that wants to pull you away, just like as in a meditation, you just write it down. All right, boom. And then you come back and you complete your sprint. Then at the end of the sprint, if you want to go and deal with any of that stuff, you can. But it's a meditation to bring yourself back to what matters. And how can this not double your revenue? If that's your goal and you've set your strategy, you said, I need to do this, 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 and this. This is the best plan that I have. If you are actually working on that plan instead of all this other crap, your chances have to go up. I'm not saying you're definitely going to hit it. Your chances, if you have a good plan and you implement the plan, you got to be ahead of 95% of people who are playing the game.
This is all good stuff. I'm going to play this episode back, as I do many of these episodes. I'm going to have to listen to it because I definitely need to get rid of some of these addictions. And this has been crazy. This has been a crazy good conversation so far. So shifting gears just a little bit.
Well, hang on. I got to pull you up because again, you said get rid of the addictions. And if that works for you, great, right? Some people can go cold turkey, but I'm more a fan of manage the addictions. Get to know them, do a deal with them. That's an easier path than just, I've got to get rid of my sugar addiction, right?
Do a deal with the devil, right?
Yeah.
So we ask this question to pretty much everybody who comes on the podcast. And that is, was there any challenge so big, so treacherous, so crazy that you almost quit your business or shut down your doors, however you want to look at it, and go back to, say, a nice, comfy job?
I can think of one of my worst moments as an entrepreneur was when I did my book launch. So I wrote a book called Get Paid for Who You Are. And I did a really big campaign. Jack Canfield wrote the foreword from Chicken Soup for the Soul. I had people lined up. People sending out to email lists of 250,000 people. I invested $150,000 in the book. And that included a ghostwriter, an editor, a publicist, $150,000 to promote this campaign. And the whole concept was I was going to give away the book. And this was back in the days when that was pretty novel. I was going to give away the book, raise money for charity, and then on the back end, we'd sell a program and I'd make a fortune. Well, we did the book launch. We had everybody lined up waiting to get in to the room to get all these time-sensitive bonuses. So it wasn't like an evergreen launch. It was like, you got to be ready. And the first 500 people will get this. The first 200 people get this. The first 5 people get this. The first 1 person gets this amazing thing. And I even paid for server reinforcement because we knew there'd be a really huge load on the server. Well, the server crashed. The server crashed at the time of the launch. And so all these people that were waiting for these time-sensitive bonuses couldn't get in for like 45 minutes. So then they figured they'd missed out on all the bonuses, and all the buildup and all the suspense dissipated. And it was a massive flop. And I remember being on my knees in my bedroom, just sobbing after 2 years and 150 grand. It was one of the biggest letdowns in my life. Now, sure, I ended up dusting myself off, but I really think that burned me out. I ended up moving to Bali and surrounding myself by rice paddies. And I had staff that would look after me and give me a massage each day. And I spent 2 or 3 years basically just like, I don't want anything to do with the business world after that. And it was only 3 years ago that I decided, you know what? It's time to get back in the game. I want to be engaged again. I want to be of service. Let's work out how to do it.
That's interesting. So basically what happened was the entire incident with the book kind of made you take a step back, but then you came back into the game, which is great. Well, why? Was there any specific reasons that made you come back? Was it money? Was it just the passion for it? Or was it just like the thrill of doing business? Like what made you come back after tapping out for,
Yeah. I think the first driver was money, the need for money. So I've been living in Bali fairly comfortably. It's a pretty low cost of living. I was in a mansion. I had them custom build and install a slide on my balcony so that I could get from my balcony into the pool. Like that was the kind of life I had. And I didn't need a lot of money to live. So that was fine. But then I had to leave Bali. I had a visa problem and I had to leave without much notice at all and get back into the real world where you got to like pay a decent amount for rent. You got to have health insurance and whatever. And I'm like, I can't keep on living off savings. I got to do something in the world. So it was the driver for money, which I'm grateful for. Because without that, I was slowly dying in Bali. Yeah, it was a comfortable heaven, but I was slowly dying. I need to be engaged. I need to be of service. And I wasn't clear on that. So that the driver was money. But once I got back into it, I realized I'm most lit up when I'm coaching and teaching and training. So it was a real blessing. Did not seem like it at the time. I promise you that. But looking back, I'm glad that I'm back in the game.
Well, that's actually the first time we've heard a story of someone leaving and coming back, which is great to show that, it can be done. If you ever fall off the horse, you can get back on.
Yeah. Well, there was another element too I want to mention is a bit of burnout. And I know we're coming up to time. There was a bit of burnout because I'd been serving the same market for so long. I've been working with coaches and I'd said everything I wanted to say. So I was just doing it for a living now. And so I am grateful that I stopped doing that and reinvented myself. And now I work with rockstar rising entrepreneurs who are feeling overwhelmed and they want to double their revenue and their time off. And I've moved away from working exclusively with coaches. So anyone out there listening, if you're feeling a little bit of burnout, it could be you need a break. It also could be that you need a pivot.
I could resonate with that. The last question we have, if there's anything that you would have done over, is there like one thing you would have done over?
I can think of a way to accelerate it. I'm really pleased that I went and hired a top coach. I think that's the smartest way to get anywhere is go and get a coach. So I went and did that and I threw down good money, which was a stretch for me at the time. I'm proud that I did that. If I could do something over differently, and I think I'm about to do this in the next few months, maybe pick 10 people in my market, 10 people who are doing an amazing job in the business that I want to get into and interview them. Build a relationship by interviewing them. Podcasting wasn't a thing back then, but it could be for a podcast. It could be for a book that you're writing. It could be for just a collection on experts. And then if you can get them to broadcast the interview and share it with their list, then that's a great way for you to build your list. But you're basically increasing your knowledge and becoming an expert in that area. And you're building a relationship with 10 people who are leaders in the field. So I just think that's one of the smartest things anyone can do when they're getting into a business or they want to build their business.
That's truly great advice. And this actually leads us into our final question. And that is, if our listeners wanted to get in touch with you, perhaps they need some help managing their addictions, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you or learn more about you and what you do?
Well, I have a gift basket of goodies, and it's designed for people who want to double their revenue faster. And they're also interested in how their lifestyle is too. So they want to double their time off. There's a cheat sheet on the fastest way to double revenue. There's a 6-minute video on how to implement it if you want to watch the video. And there's also an offer of a 15-minute audit. I will do a 15-minute double your revenue audit with you to identify the low-hanging fruit, because your plan is not going to be the same as someone else's plan. And you can get all three of those things at myfocusgift.com. That's myfocusgift.com. That'll also take you to my website. You can get on my list if you want to get a couple of videos every week on how to be way more productive and be a more extraordinary entrepreneur, partner, parent, and human.
All right, and what's your website again?
Well, myfocusgift.com will take you to the website, but focus.ceo is my general website.
All right, perfect. So for everybody who's listening, we're going to go ahead and drop that into the show notes if you want to check that out. Dave, I want to thank you again for coming to the show today. Like I said, I know I'm going to play this back. I'm going to be super cognizant of my email addiction and work on and managing it so I can gain some sanity back into my life.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Great to meet you both, Thomas and Brandon.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, leave us a review on iTunes and share the show with other business owners who may be facing their own growth challenges. And if you own a professional services firm, consider joining our private community. The Staying Power Collective is a community where owners of accounting, law, and consulting firms discuss best practices for running and growing virtual businesses. You'll get access to our Slack group, and you'll have a Zoom meeting once a month with a small group of other firm owners. To apply for the group, head on over to www.stayingpowercollective.com and fill out the brief form. And if you have suggestions for future topics or guests, or if you have general questions or feedback, send us an email at contact@stayingpowercollective.com. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great rest of your week.